Hey, welcome to Mike the Baptist. Sometimes it's like deja vu in the world. It's like you do something and it's like, I just did that.
It's like Groundhog Day over here sometimes.
Sometimes it's like Groundhog Day with no groundhog. I'll give you time to think about that. Anyway, welcome back to my friends in the studio. Neil Andrews, welcome.
Hello.
Good to have you.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
You too.
Been a while. Kuntz.
Jackson.
First name Michael. Both.
Yes, sir.
Both of us.
That's right.
Kuntz and Jackson.
Doesn't get much better.
It doesn't get much better.
Could get a lot worse.
Yeah, I'll need to think about that one for a little bit too. H.D. Jones is back.
Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday morning at 12:01. Everybody can't get up at 12:01 on Saturday, right? Like we do. I mean, I think it's a great thing that we do.
We are
here.
Committed, or perhaps we should be.
Or
maybe
demented. I don't know.
Yeah, it could go either way. Anyway, we're glad you made it back to join us. We're glad that you show up and listen or watch, because some of these conversations I think are interesting, and I don't think we're just doing it for us. I think there's a hope that some of the silliness that's said here carries a little weight with somebody that's listening or watching, or I mean, we could just go to the river somewhere and do this, and save all this time and trouble and restarts and things like that happens. But we don't, and I don't think we're going to. I have heard a comment or two over the time we've been doing this about the length of the program, and
They want it longer?
there are several people that have asked it to be like 3.5 hours, and I'm working on that. No, there have been a couple of people who have an issue with.
That's how long it takes us
with
to actually tape.
That's correct. After we start over, but I wanted to briefly explain. I had a conversation with someone over the weekend about this very topic, about this program and the length of it, and I got to hearing a few comments there for a couple of months here and there about people needing to listen faster because they're in such a hurry, and they don't have time to sit down. Although I will say, I got to thinking about that too on a side note, that a football game the Titans games are 3 hours, and I don't hear anybody talk about that's difficult to sit down and listen to. But an hour and 20-minute Mike the Baptist program, for some reason, is difficult. I don't know.
We need more commercials.
More commercials?
That way it brings people back in. Recapture their attention.
Okay, we'll work on that.
Anyway, the reason
that I had thought a couple times about trying to shorten everything up, but in fairness to the conversations, these conversations that happened here in this room and that we ultimately turn into a program take time to develop. And I'm pretty sure if you go to messing with that and you try to hurry into it, you're going to wind up sounding like any other Bible program out there. You're going to be trying to make a point, get to a point, and move on, and go do something else. I don't want that. That's not what this is. We're talking to normal, regular folks in normal, regular language, and that takes a while. It takes a while to build up, a rapport with each other and get to a point, and then
or it could be we really understand our audience. So, for example, I had a buddy that wrote a book one time.
Yep.
Gave me a copy of it, and I didn't read it for a week or so, and he called me and goes, "Have you read my book?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't read your book yet." And he goes, "Okay, well, you need to read it. There's some things in there." So a couple more weeks go by. He's like, "Have you read my book yet?" And I'm like, "Dude, been kind of slammed here. I hadn't read your book." And he goes, "Well, I wrote it slow because I knew you were slow." So maybe the reason that our programs are, lengthy is because we're kind of slow on purpose.
I liked how you put the brakes on that before you said somebody else was slow. You said because we're slow on purpose. Well, that's the point, though. The point is that I have decided I am not going to shorten this. It is what it is, and we're just going to take the time it takes to say what we need to say, and then we'll move on.
But before you get offended, please buy a T-shirt.
Yeah. That was actually in my notes too.
Before we run you off as listeners, buy a T-shirt.
Yeah, buy a T-shirt or a hoodie, and send us a picture of yourself in it. We'll put it on the screen here on our video programs. And this thought just came to me. If you only listen to the program, we'll just explain how you look to people. That just occurred to me.
And we're formulating, trying to do a live simulcast of Mike the Baptist.
Yes, that's coming. I can't wait
if
for
they
that.
would wear the item, then
They
maybe
might get called up.
We might autograph it.
Oh, well, see, there's something
Man,
new.
this is getting
Oh, I know
good.
what y'all are doing. Y'all are looking
good.
for money now.
Somebody asked me the other
Start
day
a
if we're,
line.
how much we're making off the T-shirts. I was
Yes.
like, I had to buy my own T-shirt. I didn't make any money off of it.
Well, when you talk to him again, tell him I do too. So, anyway, also email. We want to hear from you. Comments at MikeTheBaptist.com. If you have an idea, well, maybe not an idea.
Suggestion?
Did
No.
we talk about? I can't remember if we talked about that. What happened was we did all this, and I didn't push record a little while ago, so we did about 30 minutes.
Operator error.
Operator error. Now we're trying to go back and do some of that. But send us an email if you got a question for any of these guys here, or myself, or you want to comment on the program. Send it to us, and we will do our best to pay attention to it. And no promises about what we'll do with it, but send us that. And then moving right along from that. Did I say comments at MikeTheBaptist.com?
You just did.
You just did. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Again.
It will be on the screen too, but you're supposed to say it too, so, because some people don't watch. Anyway,
What is it you're supposed to say?
comments at MikeTheBaptist.com.
Okay. You did say that.
That's an old advertising trick. I used to use that a lot in writing copy. Do you remember Bert Burtis? What was his name or something? Real famous copywriter. Made these great commercials. We'll talk about that later. You and I. There's something I've noticed about the Mike the Baptist program. I don't know if anybody else has noticed it or not, but I was sitting around looking at it the other day, and I noticed that there are like 4 of you guys that are kind of regulars on the Three Preachers series and myself. And I just noticed that we all have some sort of odd whisker thing going on. It's a variety of whiskers. And Jason is not on this program, but when he's here, he has a big odd whisker thing happening
That's the
too.
biggest quantity, I'd say.
He has the biggest quantity. I mean, you could lose a truck in there. But it's just a whisker thing. It's like a cult. So I don't know. I don't know why I noticed it and hadn't really thought about it before, but I did, and I don't know. It was just something I noticed. And then somebody said,
No Shave November.
huh?
Huh? No Shave November.
Which is?
It's the month where nobody shaves. Men. Yeah. Just
Hey,
saying.
some things are better the second time you do them. No Shave November. I don't understand.
Well, I didn't know what it was. It was acknowledging men's cancer, prostate cancer, probably.
Well, I'm looking at it now, and it is cancer
Awareness?
in general. Yeah, because people typically lose their hair going through cancer treatments and stuff. So, No Shave November is guys growing out their hair in support of folks going through cancer.
Oh, well, this makes a little more sense now. We talked about this earlier in the
Would there
green
be
room
like
or
locks of
somewhere.
love? You could shave that off, and some little guy could.
Make a Brillo pad out of it or something. I mean,
Kitchen scrubber.
a little rougher.
Jason.
A little rougher.
For sure.
Oh, you could.
Yeah.
You could. You could make a Zamboni machine out of Jason's beard. Is Zamboni the right word? Is that right?
Well, that's the thing that they drive on the ice.
On the
yeah,
ice.
yeah,
Yeah.
Well, you can make one that like raked the leaves with his beard or something. Drive through your yard.
He's not even here to defend himself.
No, he's not. But what were we talking about?
No Shave
Whiskers.
November.
Yeah, I just noticed the whiskers, and I thought I'd bring that up. Speaking of not shaving, Koontz received a text from a person who said, I'm concerned about him a little bit because I think the text said, I don't have internet service right now. Did he say where I am? Or
No,
did
he just said I don't have access to email
Access-
right now, so I
access
figured
to
I'd
email.
send it to you to
So-
relay to.
The one thing I wonder about this fellow is, what cave are you living in?
Could be a tree stand he was living in.
He could have been hunting.
Yeah.
That could have been it. Well, okay. Well, it's nice if he was hunting and he thought of Mike the Baptist instead of the deer. But anyway, so we've been asking for your questions, comments, etc. At MikeTheBaptist.com. Comments at MikeTheBaptist.com. And he didn't do that, but he did have a personal cell number, so he sent Koontz a text. And I thought it'd be good with these, as we start getting these comments and or questions from people, to turn those into front porch visits rather than just brush by them, because some of them that I've gotten, and we are beginning to get some, are a little deeper than just a quick question about what's your favorite cereal, which is what I was kind of expecting, but we're getting something better. And this is a good example of it. And we're going to take this fellow's text message and turn that into a front porch visit. I thought it was interesting what he wanted to hear about. So why don't you just read his text and we'll go from there.
So he says, I have a question for y'all and Mike the Baptist. What has been one of the biggest influential moments in your ministries? One that impacted you then and still to this day. God continues to work through that particular moment.
So we'll just go through that, and I found it interesting. He didn't just say what was the moment that impacted your ministry, but he also wanted to know, and I take it to mean what is that moment that still comes up in your head today that you still, because I have markers, they call it, whoops, I've heard that in church discipleship stuff, markers. But anyway, I have markers in my life where certain things happen where it was like
they call those Ebenezer's in church.
Mm-hmm. Ebenezer's?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't.
Yeah.
That comes from Come Thou Fount.
From what?
There's an old hymn called Come Thou Fount of Every
Come
Blessing.
Thou Fount, Ebenezer, markers.
And that's where it's in, yep.
Oh.
Yep.
Come Thou Fount. We just played that at church over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Somebody else.
yeah. So I think the backstory of that is that's what he's asking is those moments. I'm curious to know too what those moments. I've talked to Neil some about these things before in his musical pursuits. I know some of HD's stories, but I'm hoping to get something more personal I don't know about.
Okay.
To show that you are deeper than just on the surface there. But anyway, Coots,
yeah,
why don't you kick it off here on the front porch?
And I'm hoping that I haven't shared this one before because I can't remember everything we've talked about on this program, but if so, it is. So one of the big things, the most influential decision event for me in my ministry was I'd been a youth pastor for probably about 8, 9, 10 years, somewhere around there. And I'd planned on being a youth pastor until I was 100 years old, and God called me home. I didn't ever see myself do anything else. I was on a mission trip in Haiti, and it's when God started changing the direction of my ministry from being a youth pastor to being a pastor. And that was because when we were getting ready to go out on our assignments at night, when we'd go to Haiti, we would have teams go out all over Port-au-Prince and the surrounding areas, and we'd do revivals in all the churches during the time that we were there. So we'd have teams of 2 to 3 people. One would be the pastor or the preacher. One would be the prayer partner. And if you had a third person, they were just extra prayer support as you would go in and preach at a church every night. So we were going around the room, and they were giving out the assignments, who was going to do what. They came to me, and they said, what are you going to do this week, Kuntz? And I said, well, I'm here with my pastor. I plan on being his prayer partner as he goes out and he preaches. And he kind of looked at me for a second. He said, what do you do back home? I said, well, I'm youth pastor at his church. All these other guys that are going out to preach this week, he's a plumber, he's an electrician, these guys are in construction, doing all these other jobs and stuff. They're going to go out and preach. You're going to go out and preach. You're a preacher. I was like, all right. So I had a 3-hour notice to go out and preach for the first time, really. And went out every night that week to different churches and preached. Hated it all week long. Didn't look forward to it a bit. But after I got home and over the next year or two, God just really started changing the direction of my ministry. And, I'm still on that today, still getting to preach when I can and just, not doing youth pastor anymore.
You were how old?
20 years ago. About 28.
How old are you now?
48.
It was a while ago.
It's been a bit.
How many times have you been to Haiti? Have you been there several times?
Yeah, it's been a number of times. Yeah.
It's a whole different world down there.
It is. Yeah. It's been a long time since I've been there. I haven't been there since the earthquake. So it's been a number of years for me.
If you want to see something that's just right out of like a National Geographic magazine or something, you ride in the back of a tap-tap through Port-au-Prince. Looking out the back of it,
that's scary.
Well, it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
It's like the pictures you've seen in magazines of the places in the world that are so densely populated, it's just like a sea of humanity. I'll never forget that ride in that tap, just looking out the back of just this sea of humanity kind of folded in behind you there. It's
And I don't
just
know how they
incredible.
drive. I don't know how they drive in that because, I mean, it's
Yeah.
every direction and people and taps everywhere. I'm like, how do you know where to go?
It's incredible. So that moment
Yeah.
still comes back to you.
Yeah, because I'm here today as a result of that one mission trip. You know, it completely changed the direction of ministry in my life.
Is this where you felt like you could be a preacher instead of?
It started that process, yeah. Yeah, and it still took a couple of years after that before I committed and went and started pastoring my first church.
I'm thinking that preaching has got to be pretty daunting the first few times
You know,
you do it because you're expecting so much probably of yourself.
I think it is every time. There is a tremendous weight every time I step in the pulpit.
You still have the butterfly before you.
The butterflies not so much, but my stress level's through the roof because you're dealing with something that you don't want to mess up,
No, you don't.
and you never know who's sitting out there. It's like this might be the only shot that you get at sharing the gospel with them, and I'm like, you know, that I mean, it gets me every time I step in the pulpit.
You remember our good friend Linwood Nichols?
Yes.
He was sitting on the front row, and he was filling in for me that day. And I walked up, sat down beside him, kind of whispered to him. I was like, "Linwood, when do you stop getting nervous?" He said, "If you stop getting nervous, don't go up there."
That's right.
I think that's good advice.
I agree with that completely.
Well, you know, I know Neil and I are both music people, but to this day, when I step in front of somebody to perform something, even though I've rehearsed, I got a little bit of a butterfly. And I think, looking back over the past in that arena, the times where I stepped up there behind a microphone and didn't have that are the times I failed miserably.
Absolutely.
Couldn't remember anything, just failed miserably. But the times, so I think it's I understand what you're saying about the preaching thing from this music aspect of it.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Yeah, a couple of things that I'll share. I don't know if they're deeply personal enough for you or not, Michael. But
We'll call you on it if they're not.
so the guy that baptized me when I was a kid had an opportunity to go and actually preach for him, really over him, as he was resigning the church. He was retiring. And, I always looked up to this guy, and we were family friends along the way. But, just had lost a lot of touch with him and stuff. And, it was an honor to be called in to preach for Brother Frank. And so I'm up there and I'm preaching, and he grabbed me afterwards and he said, if you could just reach one like I did. He was looking at me and I'm like, "You've reached more than one." He goes, "No, I've reached you." And I was like, okay. It's kind of surreal, for somebody you look up to, for them to basically tell you the importance of my ministry was you. And then he told me something else. He said, "I know you can get caught up in going to meetings, and I know you can get caught up in studying because you want to be prepared. But," he said, "don't forget that what they're going to remember is if you love them or not." That's some good stuff to just stop and think through because, as ministers, gosh, we get caught up in a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of administration stuff, and there's a lot of dealing with people, and there's a lot of dealing with just checking boxes and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, you got to know your Bible, but you also got to be able to live it, and that's just loving on people.
Yep.
So you still that moment still pops up.
Oh,
all
absolutely.
the time.
Yeah. Because sometimes I'll struggle with, do I need to do this thing, or do I need to just stay right here and spend some time with this person? And I remember Frank talking about that. I'm like, I probably just need to spend time with this person.
How old were you when that happened? Do you remember?
Gosh, that hadn't been that long ago, Michael. That was probably just about 10 years ago. Yeah.
And you were how old?
He asked that question
said
two different
I know,
ways.
right?
I did. Well, I had to,
Get
'cause he
ready,
didn't
Neil.
answer
Here it
the
comes.
first
Right?
Because I said specifically, how old were you when that happened? He said, "Gosh, Michael, I don't know. It had to have been 10 years ago."
Yeah.
And?
Yeah. Yeah, do the math. 10 years younger than I am today.
Interesting. Okay, Neil.
I would. It's funny because both of them have said things that resonate the same way. I've done music my whole life. That's what I've done. And when I started leading worship, I won't tell you the long story. I didn't want to do it. I didn't. The big deal was I didn't feel qualified to do it. And after using that as an excuse for enough times, I felt like God was going, I gave you gifts. I want you to use your gifts as long as you're submitted to me. I don't know if any of that needs a buzzer or not, but not yet.
Not yet, yeah.
So one of the first times that I was responsible for leading worship, which was several years ago.
Well, hang on, leading worship.
Okay.
How old were you then?
For doing,
How old
I
were
don't
you?
remember. It was
How many years has that been?
that was back in the 20th century. Right? It's funny because I've played in front of bunches of people, lots of people, and there's something about knowing how to get a response from an audience. And just being confident in the fact that you can do that. And it's not thinking highly of yourself. I don't think it's thinking highly of yourself. I think it's knowing and having a skill and, knowing how to communicate something to an audience and then they react to that. And one of the first Sundays that I did that I did music at the church, that I led worship,
Right.
the congregation, I got hung up on, I made a mistake while I was playing. And I don't think I'm perfect by any means, but I made a mistake that, we joke and go, if you make a mistake, do it twice and nobody will notice. But I didn't do that. I made a mistake, and it stuck with me the whole time that we were doing music. And I kept thinking, I have just ruined everything. I've gotten in the way. And I was cognizant of that whole time that we were doing music. So that's burdening me. So after the service is over, a man came up in tears and he said, I'm so thankful you used that particular song. The words spoke to me. And I'm like, okay, you're in charge. You've got it, and I need to be focused on you. And that doesn't mean that I do things with any less excellence or strive to do it, not perfectly, but, strive to not make mistakes, but to not let that be the focus of it. And the focus is to listen, and that's affected everything that I've done since then.
Well, I mean, it seems to me like God is in charge of creating you in a certain way. I'm just following up on your talking about that feeling of being in front of somebody and presenting something and being able to evoke a response, and that is a skill. But it's got a lot to do with your personality, and it seems to me what I've learned about that kind of stuff is if you just be who you are, that's what somebody out there is really looking for. If somebody sits down to listen to you or look at you or watch you, people aren't going to do that for very long if they don't really get something out of that. They're going to move on to something else.
Well, the bigger epiphany for me is that I'm no longer doing this for a group of people sitting out there. We have, there's a philosopher named Kierkegaard, and he said we serve an audience of one. And he had it in, his application was about theater and saying there's an audience of one out there looking at our lives. And but it's the same thing with music, with preaching. The word is a little different because you are speaking directly to people. When we do music, most of it, it's supposed to be everybody in the room is the worship team. Everybody in the room is worshiping and offering something to God. It's not just the people up front that happen to know the song before everybody else does. So that was big epiphany, and I felt what he was talking about. I felt that weight of the audience is a whole lot different than than what I ever expected. It's just a very different thing.
I guess when you're preaching or doing that, you don't want to forget that there are people out there. But I think you do got to go to somewhere in your head where You're just carrying out the task that you believe you've been given to the best of your ability. And of course, I know all three of you guys now, and if it weren't for your different personalities, I would be incredibly bored with whatever it is you're doing. I believe your personality is a part of what you're doing. I mean, I say jokingly about HD, he's good for one redneck comment every time he preaches. That is true.
Yes.
But that's why I enjoy listening to you. Kuntz, I haven't heard speak as much yet, but you have this very commanding presence about you when you are preaching and talking, and I find that really interesting. It makes me want to listen to you. Neil, you're just incredibly talented, and I appreciate that because I aspire to be, when I grow up, kind of like that. But
I think you're grown up and you are like that.
well, we try.
Thank you.
I was speaking of markers earlier. I have one. I'm not a preacher, but I feel like I've been involved in these odd ministry ventures over the years. And in a hotel room in Lexington, Kentucky in 1996, I believe it was, after having been out roaming around the Southeast in not the best of circumstances, I wound up in that hotel room, and I read a Gideon Bible, and I felt like God had been riding along in my car with me that day, just sitting over there. And when I got to that hotel room, I read in that Gideon Bible that night by myself. This is where I was saved. No preacher in the room, just me. That was it. But I read in that Bible a phrase that you can do nothing without me. Totally changed my whole life right there. Now, I was not involved in churchy things at that point, by far. By far. I was as far away from that as you could get. But that's a marker in my world because to this day, whether I'm writing a song, singing it, teaching a Connect Sunday school class, whatever you want to say about that, I realize before I do that particular thing, there's two things I realize. One is it's okay for me to try, whatever that is. It's okay for me to try. And two, I'm not really in control of what happens with it after it comes out of me, which gives me this great freedom to do things the way I do things. Mm-hmm. I just do things the way I do them. But that particular phrase in the Bible that night has rode with me all this time because it made me understand something. You know, I used to think that I could think through everything and I could figure it out. Just give me enough time, I could figure it out. But no, it doesn't work that way. What I realized that night is that no, I can't do anything good without him. I can do a lot of stuff. I've always been able to do a lot of stuff. But the stuff I've been able to do good since then have been because I was doing it with him in the back of my mind and trying, as lame as my attempts are sometimes, to do it for that cause rather than myself. And I can attest to the fact that it's true. You can't do anything good without him. It's just not going to happen. It may look good for a little bit, but it'll fizzle away and be gone in a matter of moments, and you'll realize that wasn't that good. The good things he's shown me over and over and over since that time that's true. There's nothing I can come up with and do that's good without him. That's a marker in my life. It affected me then. It affects me to this day. If I step up with you next Sunday and play mandolin again for you, that's what I'll be thinking right before I play that. Mm-hmm. 20 minutes before I do that, I'll be back there in the back room kind of going over those charts in my head again one more time. Because, I don't like to look at stuff on the play.
You'll be back in the back of the room waving at everybody.
I'll be back waving, yes.
But that passage of Scripture,
yes,
Jesus is really talking to his disciples about how to be fruitful in the kingdom. So, people that are listening, they're like, oh, well, I've done good stuff. I've made money. I've loved my kids. I've done this. But the point of that is, if we're not abiding with Him, then really nothing that we do is of any real dire consequence. I mean, it sounds so cliche, but you have really no purpose in life until your purpose is to know God. And when you know God, then everything in your life has purpose. Us doing this has purpose. You playing an instrument has purpose. Us getting, even you look at church and some of the crazy things we have to do, announcements and committee meetings and take up an offering and some of those things that people are like, oh, you're just doing this, you're just doing that. But those things have purpose if we're doing it in Him, with Him, for Him. They have zero purpose if we're just trying to do it for ourselves.
Humans, it seems like being a writer, I observe. That's where you get material. You observe. But I've observed that humans need a reason, like you're talking about. They need a purpose.
Yep.
They need a reason. The humans who don't have a reason, how they say it, lost as a ball on high weeds.
Yep.
You're not going to go anywhere. If you don't have a reason for anything, nothing's really going to go anywhere. You're just going to kind of be fumbling through your world. But it seems like the humans, when something clicks in their head and they've got this purpose, that everything changes. And they've got this direction, and you can go to work on it. And I think that's what I hear in each one of y'all's stories about these points that you were talking about when certain things happen. It's like it gave you a new focus or a new understanding, and you just took off from there and built on it. Same with me in my hotel in Lexington. It's just like a new reason. I can't imagine people that don't have purpose for being alive, other than if you don't, you're just an amoeba or something, basically, aren't you? You're just swimming around.
You look at our culture and look at what our celebrities do and how they get so bored with themselves, and I've already sold so many records and I'm so famous, I'm going to change my name, and I'm going to change my hair, or I'm going to change my gender. There's all these things because they're still grasping at straws. They're not happy within themselves. They're just not. And it just proves that things in this world don't make you happy. There's some fun in it, but it doesn't bring you lasting contentment, and that's what you find when you walk with God. You find contentment. Doesn't mean everything's easier. It's always fun, but it's like, okay.
All right. I'm buzzing you because I just realized, I'm buzzing all of us. I just realized we've crossed into our next section of deep Bible talk, and we've gotten ahead of ourselves. So
okay.
We got to save some of this stuff for the next one.
That's
okay?
That's the way these conversations flower.
See?
Blossom.
See what I was telling
Blossom.
you? Now, had we tried to condense this into 8 minutes,
It would have been a train wreck.
we would not have got most of this at all. We would have got,
You're welcome.
Tap Tap Ride Through Haiti, playing in a band in Germany, HD with his friend, Farmer with a Mule. No, that was another episode.
Yeah, that's a different story.
Anyway, so we will take a quick break. Thanks to Adam for the interesting question. I hope this enlightened you on these guys a little bit. We'll be back.
Hot diggity dog, Armour Franks. Ahoy there, mateys. Here's a new hot dog diggity party kit. This time, a pirate party. As host, you get a real pirate hat and eye patch. And there's a treasure map and ring for you and every member of your crew. Follow the map to discover your own Armour Star Frank and a nifty pirate ring. Then everybody gather round and dig into those sizzly, juicy Armour Star Franks. Hot dog diggity, are they good? Armour Star Franks. Be the first to give a real pirate party. Send in this backboard plus 50 cents. This party book inside each package of Armour Franks has loads of party ideas and tells you just how to send for your pirate party kit. Hat, eye patch, 8 maps, and 8 rings. Ask Mom to get some Armour Star Franks tomorrow. What's the matter? I forgot my Brill cream. That's one thing no man should ever forget. No matter what you do, you'll do better with Brill Cream, the cream hairdressing for smart, clean hair grooming. Brill Cream is different, not greasy, not messy. Really, not greasy, not messy. And with Massage Brill Cream conditions as it grooms. Instantly improves your appearance, makes your hair look richer, healthier.
With Brill Cream, anything can happen. Watch.
Brill cream, Brill cream, Brill cream, Brill cream, a little dab will do ya. Brill cream, you look so debonair. Brill cream, the gals will pursue ya. Simply rub a little in your hair.
Brill Cream is the world's largest selling hairdressing. Over 60 million packages sold a year. Remember, the smart look is the Brill Cream look.
Hey, we're back, and in the green room, of course, we were talking about food because
Nobody's brought us any lately.
Nobody has. But now, I was telling, who was I telling? Neil or somebody this morning that I did an artwork favor for a friend of mine whose daughter is, I think the project was actually for her daughter, but anyway, her daughter's a baker, and she threw her daughter under the bus and offered up baked goods. And I said, well, we do need things to review on Mike the Baptist, so I'll look for something interesting coming right up. And you're welcome. I took one for the team right there. Thank you, Jackson. We'll see what happens. We're going to move into the Bible talk portion of Mike the Baptist, and we're going to turn it over to the preachers to lead it.
We've been looking at, it's Christmas time, and so we've been looking at some of the prophecies in the Old Testament and how Jesus fulfills those prophecies. And, one of the things that Isaiah points out to us 600 years before Jesus comes in the flesh is that he is going to be Emmanuel, or God with us. And, thinking through that, why is that so important for us to know that God put on flesh and became like us? How does that encourage you, or how does it help you relate to him?
We've been talking about in our staff meetings lately, chaos. Just so
really?
much stuff going on.
I can see that.
Well, we got chaos in our lives, in our world, everywhere.
In your meetings?
Yeah, everywhere. And it's incredible. Do what?
I said not so much.
Not so much.
Good.
But to know that our Savior came into this world to experience the things that we would experience, that's tremendous comfort. That's great assurance to us, because he has gone through things that we're going through today, and he's gone through so much more than what we've already experienced in our lives. The fact that he could feel all the emotions that we deal with on a daily basis, and he kept his composure. He kept wisdom about him. If he dealt with a difficult situation, he spoke wisdom. He spoke love with other people. He's just such a great example for us because of what he did a couple thousand years ago for us.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that here at this table recently, that had he not been flesh, bone like we are, it'd been a lot harder to relate to him. Mm-hmm. If he were this God out there somewhere but yeah, I think we did the same thing.
Emmanuel. What does that mean to you, Neil? How does that draw you in?
Other than the literal, it means God with us.
Right.
I have to remind myself of that. It's not just there all the time, but I have to remind myself God is present, and he's not out there somewhere. And, we always pray to heaven is up there. God is present with us all the time. Nothing that ever happens, he understands yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So nothing ever happens that he hasn't been aware of as a result of taking on the form of human flesh. And it's comforting, I guess, in some ways. I don't want to use that word too freely, but there is comfort in realizing that. A quick thing that relates to this, I read a number of years ago, the first time I went to Ireland, I read, you've heard of Patrick. Well, he's called St. Patrick. He's not a saint. He's not Irish. He was English. and he was kidnapped by Irish raiding pirates and taken to Ireland. And he wrote an autobiography, and it was fascinating because I read through that with a pastor friend from Ireland, and we both had the epiphany. He didn't go through anything that we haven't gone through. Mm-hmm. And I always think that my issues are like, oh, I'm the only one that's going through this. How in the world do I get through it? Here's somebody that lived in the 400s. 425 to be exact was when he wrote that. And there's nothing new under the sun. You know, it's right out of the Word. It says that in there, and it's the truth. So anyway, that it's affirming to me, and it's encouraging.
I know all of us that's sitting at this table, we've experienced this on both sides of the coin, but do you remember being that age when you didn't have any children, but you saw somebody else with children, and those thoughts, or even you verbalized, when I have kids, I can tell you right now, I'm not going to do this, or my kids will never act that way. And then we got that advice from people who don't have kids, and you kind of just look at them and go, you don't have a clue what you're talking about.
That's right.
And I think that's kind of the neat part of this, is that we can't look at our God and say, you don't have a clue what I'm going through.
Right. Right.
He knows exactly what you're going through. Now, again, we can be ticky-tack with that. I remember one time I was talking to somebody and I said,
Wait a minute. Tiki-tack?
Yeah. Sprinkle that.
We need to look that up.
It's Aramaic.
I remember having this conversation with somebody, and they were going through a hurt. They were going through a painful time in their life. And I said, God knows what you're going through. He's had heartache, headache, emotional pain, all those things. And this person at the time was going through a divorce, and she said to me, well, he's never been divorced. And again, y'all know me well enough to know my spiritual gift of
Sarcasm.
Sarcasm, yes.
That's
It's really not a gift.
There, I think, isn't it?
It's really not a gift, but it's a curse. But it was all I could do not to just look at her and go, oh, how many years were you married? And I knew the answer to that. But then to flip around and go, oh, so your marriage of 20 years is so much deeper and so much grander than the eternal Son of God and the eternal Father being separated at that moment on the cross when Jesus said, why have you turned your back on me? No, Jesus was never married. I don't care for the Da Vinci Code and that silliness that people try to throw out. But he does know true intimacy and oneness. And he experienced the hurt of sin in that relationship. Not because he was a sinner, but because we are. So I think that stuff just, again, helps us to trust him. He's been there. He knows how we feel. And so even when we're down and out, it's that opportunity to reach back to him.
Yeah, and because he knows, he's experienced, but also then when you add to that the fact that he knows what's coming still.
Yes.
It just even amplifies that encouragement and helps us as we walk day by day and even in the valley. And it's like, hey, he knows something good's coming our way.
Yeah.
And it may not necessarily mean that something good's going to happen here, in this current life, but if we know Christ is our Savior and Lord, we got something really good waiting for us. You don't get any better than eternity, with God. So,
aren't we supposed to be made in His image? And if that's true, wouldn't that indicate that we feel, He feels? I mean, wouldn't that indicate that we're like Him in that sense?
Yes.
Well, and then it would make perfect sense that he would set things up so that we would know that He understands what we feel. I've got this really strange sense. We were talking about where God, you were talking about where He is out there somewhere. I've got this really odd thing I've done for years mentally. It's like when I start thinking about where is God. Well, God, the way I understand it, is spirit, we're spirit, and I believe that we're connected exactly right there, as close as you can get with him. And there's this little thing that plays through my head that if I close my eyes and I start eliminating my human senses, my touch, my taste, my smell, my sight, what's left is my spirit. And I can understand how really closely connected we are. The same with you guys across this table. You know, you become friends with people and there's something about it you can't explain, but you have this really deep connection that you can't explain. You don't have it with everybody, but as you get to know somebody, you do. And I believe that's where all of this is taking place. So I don't picture God out there anywhere at all. I picture him as right here among us. And when I get rid of these things that are human, you know, the body, I guess, then what's left in my mind, in this picture in my mind, and it makes me understand how we can all be together someday in one place. Maybe I'm insane. I'm not insane, but
You're creative.
I'm a little off. Creative. Creative is a good word for that. But that helps me kind of
But the
see
cool
that.
part about that, and that goes back to Emmanuel, because God is spirit. The Bible very, very plainly tells us that, which means before the incarnation, before Jesus became the baby in the manger, Jesus was spirit. But he put on flesh and dwelt among us, so that now our relationship is more than just spirit to spirit. It's also flesh to flesh, because our eternal state will be a body with an eternal spirit and a revised, newer body, which we'll all be happy about. But we'll be able to shake hands with Jesus. We'll be able to see him. We'll be able to hear him. And so that's not insane to say there's that spiritual connection, but it's also, this Emmanuel thing is huge because God became one of us so that we could become like him, not that we would be divine, but that we would be eternal with him and could have this connection. You know, one of those things that, gosh, it just blows my mind. The creator of all things. The creator of all things. God didn't send his son to save dogs and kitty cats or trees and grass blades. He sent his son to die on a cross to save us. And one day in heaven, we're going to get to worship at a different level than even the angels can do. The angels worship him because he's God. But they look at us kind of out of the corner of their eye, a little envious. It says they want to know, they want to understand this relationship that we have with God. And it's different and it's unique. And so all of that is brought about through the prophecies that are being told about who Jesus is going to be. And we typically think at this time of year of the baby in the manger, but some of Isaiah's prophecy is going to say things like he is the great light, the wonderful counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Those are bigger than what we typically think of as human or natural things. So of those descriptions of Christ, I'll say them again. He's the great light, the wonderful counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Which one of those things do you look at and go, I need that right now? That's the part of God that just really speaks to me right now, and maybe why.
Is there a D that says all the above?
It's hard to.
Yeah.
It is really hard to pick just one of those.
Those are big. Those are high church concepts.
Yes.
When you start saying things like they're kind of high church concepts.
And like so for me, I can't pick one. The theme this week for me is peace, and I love the Prince of Peace. We look forward to a day that we don't have wars going on around us. It's heartbreaking to see stuff going on in other parts of the world. We have, here in our neck of the woods of Middle Tennessee, it's like we're hearing about shootings all the time. It's like, man, it's going to be nice when the day comes that ain't people killing each other anymore. We don't have disagreements among our own friends anymore. And then the other one that I really look forward to is the everlasting Father. And two reasons. One, it's everlasting. I'm tired of losing. I'm tired of losing people.
Yeah.
And relationships. So that everlasting Father, man, how cool is that going to be? To think we're never going to have to say goodbye. That's so much fun just to think about that. And it's just going to always be, hey, so good to see you. No goodbyes. Just we're always going to have that relationship, and it's just going to be so good because He is the Prince of Peace. It's going to be just a perfect relationships among us and Him, and there's not going to be any end to that.
What were you writing down over there? I saw you writing something down.
I was thinking back about when you were talking about Jesus and the various forms and that He existed as Spirit initially, and there's a word in there where it talks about Jesus that I think we miss a lot of times, and it's such a difficult concept to understand. Yes, Mary carried Him for 9 months, but it says He was begotten, not made. And I remember studying, and I can't remember what the word is for begotten, but the essence of it is He is God, and that's what that word means. He's not a duplicate the way that we would be, that our sons would be duplicates of us. He is the essence of God, and He says it clearly in Scripture. But I think we forget that sometimes because we think about Mary carrying Him, so He's just human, but He's not. He's so much bigger than that. So much. That's what I was thinking
that's
about.
Cool.
I actually caught all three of you all scribbling. And he's got a whole bunch of.
Well, that's right. You've got this peripheral vision thing.
I do. I can see my ears.
There's a lot of big words.
Yeah.
We got to write down
Yeah.
thoughts before
Yeah,
we forget
I'm
them.
going to get me a pad and start scribbling things down. So
Well, when I finally got a pen that works, that was nice.
That helped.
Mike the Baptist. Wonderful counselor. Golly, I think we forget sometimes that not only does God know where I'm at and know how I feel, but He wants to talk about it.
is that what where the counselor comes in?
Yeah.
Because that's a Christmassy phrase you hear.
He
a
wants
lot.
to talk about it and help us. So much of being a man is, I can figure this out on my own. I can do it by myself. I don't need anybody else. No. And then you come to the end of yourself and you're like, honey, come in here. Does that look straight to you? We need each other. How much more do we need God? And I just love that He's our wonderful counselor. Because I don't know about you, but I've talked to counselors and people along my life, and you go to them for answers. I'm going to throw my dad under the bus. Great dad. Not complaining about my dad at all, but one of my moments in ministry, I was trying to decide, do I just stay and work a real job and then be a lay leader, or do I step out? And so I don't know what to do. I don't have a clue. So I thought I'd go to my dad. Dad's full of a lot of wisdom. Go over to the barn. We'll just be the two of us. I kind of throw this subject out there. I'm really struggling. Here's what my dad goes. I don't know, son. You'll have to figure that out.
Wonderful counselor.
Wonderful counselor. Yeah, and that's not to throw him under the bus, but in his wisdom, here's what he knew. I don't want your calling to be because I called you. Mm-hmm. And so we need counselors and in our physical realm, but we forget God wants me to go, dear Lord, today stunk.
Yep.
I walked into a hornet's nest today. God, I found $50. Thank you. Man, I ate this sandwich one day and it hurt my stomach. God, I don't understand what I just read in Scripture. I mean, all the things that we think are little or trite, or surely the God out there could not care about my earache or heartache. He does.
Where did do y'all know where the wonderful counselor phrase comes from? Where does that come from?
Isaiah chapter 9, verses 1 through 7.
Did you say that already?
No, I didn't, but I did now.
in
Thanks
there.
for reminding
Yeah.
me.
Interesting.
It's in there. Yeah. Any or outie, it's in there. Yeah.
So what was he writing about when he says that? Do you know, or off the top of your head?
Who Messiah was going to be.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because Israel had been made all these promises, and there had been a lot of men who had made declarations that they were the savior of Israel, but it always fell short.
Part of the Christmas story to me, it really kind of stirs me up. You know, when you're going through Christmas plays at your church and you're hearing all about the Christmas story, is the part about where all these things were kind of predicted way back ahead of time, and then when it actually happens here, the whole Christmas story,
Everybody missed it.
It really swells that whole story up inside of me.
Yeah, but everybody missed it. That's the thing that you're like, it's been foretold. I mean, not by one prophet, by all the prophets. In one way, I mean, you can go back and look from Genesis all the way to the end of the Old Testament. It all points to Christ, and yet when he shows up, they missed it. Which is kind of an interesting point.
They should have had more Christmas plays.
I don't know, right? It's kind of an interesting point.
They would have seen it
and,
coming.
I don't know if you guys seen this on the news. You can YouTube this and look it up. There's a guy, I can't even begin to pronounce his name, but he's being called the modern day Messiah. And there are thousands of people in Israel following this guy. He's probably in his early 30s. He's kind of, honestly, I would say he's on the spectrum somewhere, because he plays music by ear. He's memorized all of the law and the Talmud, and he's giving these speeches. And I mean, older rabbis are coming up kissing his hand. And I mean, this guy is a celebrity in Israel right now. And everybody is saying things that sound very messianic, like, I touched him and I was healed. I pressed in onto him just to hear his word, and I kissed his hand, and my world has changed because of him. And it's kind of a reminder to look back at what Jesus' public ministry is, but also this desire for us to want to have that person who's has that wisdom and is truthful and shares with us the deeper things. But Paul uses this really unique phrase. And I know we've got smart people in the room, so I'm ready for them to pounce on this one.
Wait a minute.
In the
he looked at me when he said that, indicating that they're all over there across the table
exactly.
somewhere.
Yeah. We're on this side of the table for a reason, Mike.
I'm with you.
But the fullness of time, what does that mean when Paul said in the fullness of time? Because Jesus could have been born at any time. What was so special about the time that he was born?
Is that a question for the smart people across the table?
They know.
Well, it was the timing to bring about the gospel.
Yeah.
To get out there and share this information, right?
Yep.
Is that it?
Come on, Neil. No, I can tell. Look, Neil.
No, I can't define it. Seriously.
It is this reminder, isn't it, that just God had this plan, and it was in His time, in His way. You know, we always look at this thing and we're like, hey, what if Jesus was born today and he could be on CNN and he could have social media, and boy, it would have been, his ministry would have been a lot more effective if he would have. No, in the fullness of time. And I have heard some scholars talk about this, and just kind of, it makes a lot of sense. In the day that Jesus was born, the Romans had given stability to the then known world. So there were literally roads, and they were made so that their soldiers could walk from city to city and take over cities. But there was an infrastructure, a government that was there. And then there's the Hebrew knowledge and their fervor for "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one," and holding on to this monotheistic mindset. And then the Greek language, the common language. Mm-hmm. So you had all those three things together, that in the fullness of time the gospel could reach the world, which is incredible that God would do it just like that. But isn't that kind of who our God is? He doesn't react, and that's hard for us to understand. Everything I do is a reaction. Everything I do is a reaction. It's like, I'm tired, so I'm going to go to sleep. I'm hungry, so I eat. God doesn't do his life like that. Everything is planned. He's marching toward a result and the end goal, and nothing catches him off guard.
What was your original question that started all this?
Just the fullness of time.
Why is it important?
Why is it important that we understand that what Paul says in Scripture, in the fullness of time, that God sent Jesus to be born of a virgin?
I would like for one of you guys to write a sermon someday.
I do that every week.
Well, I know, but I've got
a good sermon. I see what you did there.
In the interest of the preacher's famous 3 points or whatever,
right?
A history lesson. Creation, Christ came, and the end. Just there's only 3 points to it.
Okay,
but it's the history lesson. And it's what you're talking about, is that God had a plan when he started all this. When he created everything, he had this plan. Who understands that? I don't. Do y'all? Who understands what he was up to or why? But it happened. But in the middle of this big story is this Christmas story. Like maybe one of the most important points in history for us.
Yep.
Because without that point right there in the middle of this whole thing, we would have been left, Neil, looking out there in space somewhere for where he is, what he is, who he is, what's it got to do with us. But at this point, when he got in the middle of us, it changed everything, big time.
Once you have the knowledge of what happened, the responsibility is left to you then, really. I mean, to make that decision, that choice.
To react to it?
Mm-hmm.
Why would this stuff be important to somebody who's not in the preacher circle?
You got to respond to God's love. One of the things.
Oh, wait a minute. Are you saying the reason God did this is because he loves people?
Yes.
I'm leading you here, but
yes, I appreciate that.
Here, I'll
appreciate that. No,
but that's true. Is that not true?
I mean, you've got. If God did not come to us, we could have never gone to God. I mean, you look at.
Oh, wait, though. What did the people before
God?
Jesus showed up? I mean, before. So this is confusing to some folks.
Yes.
What did they do before Jesus showed up? How did they? I mean, there's an obvious difference. After Jesus, we got a connection here, a physical connection with him, because he was like us physically. Mm-hmm. So we can understand, but before, I'm just asking out of curiosity because I know this thought comes up in people's heads.
It's a big question.
And Hebrews chapter 1 answers that. In the olden days, God spoke through the prophets and through the judges, and in these last days, he's spoken through his Son. So they were looking forward to who Christ was going to be. We've looked back at what he has done, but we're all looking. I mean, no matter where you are on the spectrum of the timeline, you're looking to see what God is doing. But the whole point of that conversation is you're not even looking if God's not revealing who he is. I mean, we ask big questions. I mean, every culture, who am I? Why are we here? What's my purpose in life? But even to ask those questions, your dog does not ask those questions.
No. Nope.
The deer that's running down the side of the road does not ask those questions. Why do we ask those questions? Because God put them in our heart to ask those questions. And so then it becomes a response. It becomes a response to his love, his leading us to be in a relationship with him. Moments of silence.
So
I was thinking maybe he was going to speak there for a second.
I was just going to ask a question. So people like to say God has a sense of humor,
Oh, absolutely.
but from what you just described, he already knows what's going to happen, and humor
Yes.
is based on surprise, right?
We're surprised he's not.
Right. So I don't think he has a sense of humor. I think he has a sense of irony.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
And I
that's pretty good.
picture him frequently, whatever he's looking like, whatever he's doing, whether he's sitting in a chair, whatever, shaking his head going, those kids.
Yeah.
Just like your parents.
There's a certain...
Just like
yes,
your parents
yeah,
do.
Yeah.
Because we let our kids,
it doesn't
when they're growing
surprise
up, do
you.
things
It's just-
sometimes because we know they're not going to get hurt doing that, but it's going to be kind of funny watching them go through
Yeah,
it.
like when the kids, were real little and they want to eat a lemon, you're like, sure, go ahead and eat the lemon.
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
get that face, and you're like, I knew that was going to happen.
Hey, look, these are part of what fascinates me about this thing we're up to here is, and I thought this before ever bringing it up, is that it'd be really interesting to get a bunch of preachers in a room to try to talk like not preachers in a way. I just thought it'd be, and it's working out great. It's working out just like I wanted it to, because it's forcing you guys to dumb it down to talk to me. And it's forcing me to try to be serious enough to talk to y'all. It's just, I think it's great the way it's working out. But we'll let everybody else tell us how it's working.
Yeah.
As far as
They're listening at 1.5 speed.
the truth is, the things that we talk about in the middle of this program here are heavy duty things. They are heavy.
Yes.
Whether we're trying to figure out what some of this craziness, like in the Second Kings and some of those wild stories, mean, or whether we're talking about the simple Christmas story that everybody on the planet pretty well knows about, Jesus in a manger and the wise men, et cetera, et cetera. But these are really big things to talk about as they relate to the importance it is to your soul. And if you halfway believe you have one, these things are worthy of talking about. Anybody watching us and listening to us will realize that we are stumbling our way through some of these, trying to find a point to land on. And I don't hold you guys in a professional ministry to a standard above what I would myself, because you guys, I know, have a pressure on you that I don't have. And you have to at least pretend.
Well, when you come to the end of yourself, if you think you've got God figured out, your God's way too small.
Yes, and that's when I'm going to quit listening to you as a preacher. The day you step before me, I don't think you can act that way, but
it's not within me.
no, but all joking aside, it's like we were talking earlier, when we step in front of somebody to perform a piece of music and we think, I got this, then nope. So anyway, we're all on the same playing field here. Anybody listening to us or watching us, all of us around this table, we're all on the same playing field, and we need a reason. And we've been talking about the reason. Is that not right?
That's a way to bring us to conclusion.
So you start out, why is it important? Is that the question? What was the original question? Why
Yeah.
this Emmanuel, God with
why
us?
is Emmanuel important? Yeah. Yeah.
Because, like Neil said, had he never been with us, he would still be out there kind of out of reach in a way.
Yeah.
I think we have it better after Jesus showed up than the folks before him.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if I read it right, they were stumbling around 40 years at a time, looking for something and calling on weird gods to light fires under bulls and stuff that didn't show up, and we covered that too. But after Jesus, you got somewhere to take all that mess to. You're not having to reach out there in space somewhere. In a way you are, because it's still got a lot to do with faith, It's still got a lot to do with, because we weren't around to see Jesus when he was on the planet, so we got to take it, our understanding on what we read in history and what other people have testified to over the years. But
Did you know George Washington? But
No.
do you believe
I
he was?
saw his teeth.
Do you believe he was our first president? I mean, that's where
Yeah,
you
I
get to
believe that. Yeah.
about faith. Yeah, I mean, even the people that walked with Jesus, it still took faith. They saw him,
Yeah.
heard him, but it still took faith, and they struggled in their faith. So I would say that to all our listeners too. Just because you struggle with your faith doesn't mean you don't have any faith.
Oh no! In fact, it's the opposite. If you don't struggle with that a little
Yes.
bit, it's like the performing
Yes.
and they're preaching in front of somebody. If you don't struggle with it a little bit,
Yep.
if you don't have questions for him, he ain't going to give you an answer without you questioning it. I don't think, is he?
Well, it's too wonderful of a gift to all be figured out. And even in heaven, we're not going to wake up in heaven one day and have all the answers. We're going to wake up in heaven every day and go, oh, I didn't know God did that. I didn't know he could do that. Wow.
We're all going to get a little surprised.
Yeah,
in
it's
there.
going to be, pretty much.
Good talk. I would say this: if you're listening to us and you don't believe, start believing. That's a really good place to start.
Give it a shot.
Give it a shot, but it starts with believing.
Yep.
And the rest of it, I think the rest of it, he'll give it to you. That's just me. I'm tired. I need a snack and something non-churchy for a few minutes.
But we got any or outie.
Oh, we're going right back to it. So let's take a break, come back. We'll be back.
You may have seen people wearing Mike the Baptist t-shirts or hoodies lately and wondered to yourself, hey self, where could I get some of that bling bling? Well, tell yourself not to worry, because it's easy to order Mike the Baptist logo tees and hoodies for yourself or your family and friends. Visit MikeTheBaptist.com, click on the merchandise link, and shop away. Lots of colors and sizes to pick from. And now available, I'm Just a Christian Trying Not to Cuss tees and hoodies. Mike the Baptist is all about real talk with real people, spreading the good news to a world who can really use some good news right now. When you purchase Mike the Baptist tees and hoodies, you're helping Mike and the crew pay the bills to keep Mike the Baptist on the interwebs and talking about God's love for all people. It's really that simple. And we make no apologies for having fun and living out the Christian life. Order your tees or hoodies today with just the logo or familiar sayings you hear on Mike the Baptist episodes. Just visit MikeTheBaptist.com and click on merchandise. Thanks so much for watching and listening to Mike the Baptist and for your support in helping us spread the good news. What a great planet.
Hey everybody, it's time to play America's almost favoriteest new game show, Any or Outie, where we challenge our guests to figure out if a phrase we give them is actually in the Bible or out of the Bible. Sharpen your wits, guest. You're about to be in the hot seat of Bible stuff, because you're the next contestant on Any or Outie. Here's Mike.
Hey, we're back with a vengeance. Oh, no, we can't be with a vengeance. We're nice
Mine,
Christian
saith the
folks.
Lord.
Yeah. Vengeance is
You
his.
can't have one.
Welcome to Any or Outie
Nana,
today.
nana, boo, boo.
Today on In Your Outie, okay, I got tripped up again mentally there. Like Steve Martin once said, I'm a juggler. I juggle in my mind. Oops. I always thought that was really funny. Neil and I are in the positions of power today on Any or Outie. I'll present the first one. Neil will present the second one. It's such a feeling of power now to be in charge of presenting the Any or Outie, unless you do one that's not very good, and then which mine may be today. But I thought it would be good to bring it up. Any or Outie was born out of the realization that people say things that sound like they are in the Bible, but they're not. That's where this came from. And then the more you begin to think about Any or Outie as you're out, which I do now, I can't hear anything now. I'm ruined, as they say in Arkansas. I can't hear anything without thinking, is that in or Outie? By the way, I am developing a board game now. An Any or Outie board game coming soon.
Will that be available at MikeTheBaptist.com?
I'm sure it will be. Everything else will be too, as long as I need to go to Kroger. We're going to come up with new things. No, anyway, yeah, I'd be very, very hungry right now if that were the case. Where was I?
Any rowdy.
Where it started.
Where it started. Anyway, yeah, this is just fascinating to me, though. All these things
Isn't
that.
it?
What God has joined together, let no man put asunder. Any or outy.
Hear that a lot at weddings.
You hear it a lot. I mean, a lot. Matter of fact, you hear it at most every wedding, which got me thinking. When this one came up, did I ever read that in the Bible, or did I just hear preachers say that? Justice of the peace, etc., etc. What God has joined together. Now, the second part of that phrase, let no man put asunder, I think that one's flexible. But what God has joined together, let no man break apart, etc., etc. Is that in the Bible or out of the Bible? Is that an innie or an outie? Let me do that in an announcer voice. Is that an innie or an outie? It's not my best announcer voice, but okay. It's all you guys.
So, are there any wedding ceremonies recorded in God's Word for us?
You are so sly. Virginians are that way.
Yeah,
Are there any
it's all
wedding
about the love.
ceremonies? Yeah.
Did they? Do we have their text?
There's a liturgy in it.
Wait, we got to look up liturgy.
Did what the preacher gave during the ceremony, is that written down for us in God's Word?
Anybody that's been to very many weddings, all the preachers seem to have this little book.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we can't tell you about that book
that has.
We don't talk about the book.
It's like being in the Masonic Lodge or something. There's some little book that nobody knows about. You can't find out unless you ask about it. Anyway,
Not sure what you're talking
So
about.
this has been a crazy couple of weeks, but my brain keeps saying this is coming out of Jesus' teaching on divorce.
your brain is telling you that.
Yeah, my brain is telling that, which could be wrong. Have you not heard that God created in the beginning male and female, and He joined them together? Because I really think He's talking about divorce, the hardening of man's heart, that Moses did give them a certificate of divorce if there was adultery, but Jesus said that was just because of the hardness of your heart. Because the real idea of marriage is that what God has joined together. I think He's trying to trick us, because I really think it's in there, but then it's like, okay, it's so almost cliche in a wedding.
So are you thinking that it's in there in red letters, or
Yeah, I think it's highlighted in red letters.
highlighted in red letters?
Yeah.
Oh boy. I don't want to have to disagree with my pastor.
That's just that's the place
know that
that
it's in
keeps
there.
coming to me. What God has joined together, let man not put asunder, because
Let me just predict here, Koontz, that I think that we're running on a collision course of you and him together, which you are not going to disagree with your pastor.
Oh, you can disagree with me all day long, but that's the one that keeps coming back to me. I couldn't think of a wedding ceremony or any of that, but it was that teaching on divorce.
That'd be fascinating that we would take something talking about divorce and bring it into the wedding ceremony.
Right.
It's kind of interesting.
It is.
Don't go there. Don't do that. Stay together, you dummies.
Little pastoral
All
phrase
comments
there.
available at
Dummy.
comments at Mike the Baptist.
Speaking of great
Message
counselors,
translation,
The
right?
message
right.
translation. Yeah.
that's like the old doctor on Hee Haw, where they'd come in and say, "Doc, it hurts when I do that," and he'd hit him across the head with a cap and say, "Well, don't do that."
That's right.
Okay, Neil, you've been
dang it.
very
I
quiet.
don't believe I've ever seen that
Uh-huh.
in Scripture that way.
Yep. Well, that's why I said that the second part of what I said. Yeah, I'm not sure how to say. Should we take the second part of what I said out of it and just use the first? But they go together. Those two things are said in weddings together.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I would have to. There's got to be some leeway in whether y'all say any or outie because of the second part of that phrase. I guess I'm talking too much.
No, I'm wanting you to continue to talk.
Well,
we need to stretch this segment out, so please elaborate.
What I'd like to do is anybody listening or watching, I'd like to get a count. Raise your hand if you believe that phrase is in the Bible,
and send us that comment.
I just find it hilarious to think that there's somebody out there actually just raised their hand. What a great planet! It really is a great planet. It really, really is. Okay, any or outie. What God has joined together, let no man put asunder.
And you're saying the second part, you're okay.
Yeah, I might be paraphrasing.
But you're more concerned about what the first part. What
I might be paraphrasing the whole thing because it may not be in there.
May not be.
Preachers may have just written that over the years to use at weddings because it
does sound good.
Which is the whole point of any or outie. While y'all are debating, I'm going to double check something. And make sure I'm not misleading.
What version are you looking at?
Well, I use the NIV a lot. I think. This is the NIV. Yeah.
Okay.
Nearly inspired version.
So, what's that New Deal? What's the New Deal Bible? The
Message.
The Message. Yeah. It might say, "Let nobody mess up," real bad. What God joined together, let nobody mess up. I don't know.
Don't forget that.
That's the whole book.
That's true.
And it's what's his name? Jefferson.
Yeah.
Don't be a dummy.
Good stuff.
Okay, y'all keep discussing while I'm double checking something right here.
And now is he playing us?
Right.
He's bringing out props now.
Yeah. Can we look up the Bible?
Yeah. My first reaction every time is, I want to Google this.
Yeah.
I'm like,
right?
I can't do that.
Like I said, that's the only scripture that just jumped back because I know he's talking about divorce. I know he's talking about God's design for marriage. That's the only what God has joined together, what God has put together, created. We're not to undo.
Well,
because we really don't understand what covenant marriage is about. And as Jesus is teaching it, it really is a side note to, as unfaithful as y'all have been, I'm not going to be unfaithful to you. That's really the main part of that teaching.
Okay, so
I'm saying it's in.
All right,
I'm going out there.
Since he's brought out the props, I'm going to say to any.
Okay.
I want to say outie, but he brought the props out.
Oh,
you're saying
so you were leaning towards outie?
Yeah, you've convinced me with the props.
I was too.
So I'm going to say it's in there.
Right.
Well, and now the only reason I brought the prop out, which is this is the Bible, y'all. This ain't a prop. I'm going to buzz y'all for calling the Bible a prop.
Oh wait, that scared me.
No, again, let me say the reason I brought this out is because you hear in the wedding, let no man put asunder.
Right.
King James.
That may be a King James word, but what's your answer?
In.
I'm going to go in.
Everybody's an any?
In. Reluctant.
I'm giving it to you. It's an any, but let me read from the NIV. HD in Matthew 19. This chapter 19 is headed divorce. Verse 3, some Pharisees came to him to test him. They asked, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any and every reason? Now, I was looking surprised when you were saying that because I'm thinking, oh no, my head pastor is wrong.
Well, I mean, that's happened on multiple.
But then when you explained what you were talking about, then I looked across at Kuntz, and Kuntz, I was thinking, and he was saying, I'm not going to want to disagree with my pastor, and I'm thinking these two guys are on the same path and they don't know it yet. And that's when I started thinking.
So what's the scripture that you're reading?
Well, it's chapter 19, Matthew 19. It's after it was said when Jesus had finished saying these things, he left Galilee, went to the region of Judea to the other side of the Jordan. Large crowds followed him there, and he healed them there. Some Pharisees came to him to test him, and they asked, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife? So he was talking about divorce when he said, well, I'll just read you the whole thing through the phrase it gets to. Haven't you read, this is Jesus speaking, that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female and said, for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh, so they are no longer two but one. Therefore, what God has joined together, let man not separate. This is fascinating because I did not know the divorce setup at all. I still don't know where asunder came from. But actually, this is in the Bible. And you hear in the little wedding books you guys have that you slip out of your pocket, where he said at the beginning, the Creator made them male and female. For this reason, a man leaves, etc., etc. So it's an any. It is an any. I would like for somebody to find out at some point what this asunder business is all about.
Jason will take care of that for you.
Jason Riccardi, our resident Googler, will hopefully Google that for us in the
He will
future.
asunder us.
Congratulations, it's an any. I think all of y'all knew that part of that was an any, but maybe you didn't, but I don't know. So I've learned not to bring out the prop until late in the game because... Okay, all right. One win under our belts. We can all walk proudly
For the next
back in
30
public.
seconds.
But now Neil, who is known to have some real good zingers on In Your Audi, is in power.
So sometimes when we're walking in the church and see somebody we haven't seen, say, how you doing? And they say, I'm blessed in the Lord and highly favored.
Oh, see what I'm saying? That's your question to us, isn't
Is
it?
blessed in the Lord and highly favored actually in the Bible?
Normally at this point, I give my gut reaction right off the bat. And 90% of the time it's wrong. So I'm holding back just a little bit
Did
this
you-
time.
Did you have bologna and smoked cheese for lunch?
Actually, I had it for
Was that
for
good?
brunch and lunch.
That gut reaction could be
It may be
something else.
smoked Gouda. Smoked Gouda and smoked bologna really goes together good. Man, really good. Huh?
That's Gouda.
That's Gouda. Hey, I see what you did there. Or as HD would say, I see what you did there. That was on the last episode.
You're welcome.
Great. My gut reaction is no. But that's an Audi. Blessed in the Lord and highly favored. It sounds like a old hymn or something to me. Or old literature or something. Or it may be in that little funny wedding book that preachers have in their inner coat
could
pocket.
be a
What
song.
do you call a pocket inside your dress coat? Is there a... Huh? Pocket?
Posh
Dress
posh.
pocket.
Thank you.
Posh posh.
Okay, thanks.
Coat pocket.
Coat pocket. See the great things you learn on this program right here.
That was on Everybody Loves Raymond the other night. He said something in his posh posh. His what? His pocket. So it's a posh posh.
Gosh, never heard that. That was a really funny show.
Uh,
When they cooked the turkey, when she cooked the
oh
turkey,
my gosh.
that's one of the funniest things I've ever seen on TV. Okay, I'm sorry. In your Audi.
Blessed in the Lord and highly favored.
Sounds really good. Man.
Well,
But it
it does sound
It
good.
sounds really, really
You mean
good.
it sounds good as like it's
But
good
it's
enough to be in there?
Yeah, it does sound like it's good enough to be in there. I just don't know where.
I think it sounds like a psalm,
Yeah.
but I'm wondering if it's like it's in there but not in there together.
Well, that'd be a dirty trick.
Blessed in the Lord,
Two
yes.
things that are in there, but way apart.
Highly
favorites in
favored,
there.
but is it
Together.
together as a phrase? Because that's what you're asking. Blessed in the Lord and highly favored. Is it a phrase in the Bible?
Verbatim,
go out
I
on
guess.
this one.
Verbatim. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What'd you say?
I'm going to go out.
I'm
Ah,
thinking
really?
out. I'm
That was
thinking
my
out.
gut.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with
Oh,
Jackson.
crud. Really?
Yes, now I'm a little frightened now. I don't want to be responsible.
Maybe we
for
should have had a cup
starting
of coffee
anything.
before in your alley.
Blessed in the Lord and highly favored. See, Neil has these. When he does one, it could go either way really quick. I guess that's the point of this, though. That's the challenge, isn't it?
Trickery.
We're more than just educators here. We're also up to no good if we can
Yes.
get by with it.
Yeah.
What better joy in life is there than stumping actual preachers on stuff that's in the Bible?
I don't get much joy out of
What
that.
a great thing.
Stomping or stumping?
I'm on medication.
This is why I have to take medicine.
Okay, I really do have to take it to kind of keep up with everybody's song.
All right, so we out.
I'm out.
Out.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with out.
It's an Audi.
All right. So I was
here we
thinking
go.
about what time of the year this is. And God calls a lot of people favored. But he only calls one person highly favored. And it's in Luke.
Mary's highly favored.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And it says, it's talking about Mary. And it says, having come in, the angel said to her, rejoice, highly favored one, the Lord is with you. Blessed are you among women.
Oh, wow.
So it's an any.
No,
No, he reversed it.
it's an Audi because of the order.
Oh, I got you.
But that's the only place that those two things show up together. That's the only place in
Yeah, I
Scripture
never
that
would've
those
went
two
there.
do.
That's
is,
good.
Is it Luke chapter 2 where Mary sings her song? Is that
I
further
think that's
down?
right.
Okay. So there's two things in there. I just saw that this morning. I'll give credit where credit's due. Jonathan Kahn, go check out some of his YouTube stuff. But in Mary's song, she sings about God's faithfulness in keeping His covenant and God's mercy. And he said, take those two phrases, God's faithfulness, God's mercy. And he is showing that in a literal sense. He is showing that. He said, now correlate that with who John the Baptist's parents are. And their names literally mean
Really.
God's faithfulness, God's mercy. And Mary singing, you have shown us your faithfulness and mercy in a real sense. I thought that was really a good connection. There you go. That's a good Christmas.
You're getting way too serious,
I know, right? It's good.
but it really is good.
Again, back to this. It's all been planned out. It's a script that he has written before time began.
Neat. There's a little safety in that.
There you go.
Isn't there? Yep. I would say.
Yep.
Okay, good round.
Wow.
Good one, Neil.
Boop, boop.
Good one, Neil.
2 for 2, guys.
Okay. We'll be back to sing a spiritual hymn for you.
Christmas hymn, right?
Probably. Somewhat Christmassy.
Yeah.
Depending on how you view Christmas. We'll be back.
Oh, wow. What a great contestant and a fine sport today on Any or Outie, America's almost favorite new game show. Study up, future guest people. You're next in the hot seat for Any or Outie.
Hey,
Straw.
yo.
Mama.
We're back. And
Played a word association.
which way? There's a. Y'all look right over there because there's a camera right there. If you're not watching the video version of Mike the Baptist today, you're missing a blessing. Because I saw that, Coach. Because we're getting so comfortable now in the studio here that we're stepping up our visual game. And since we can't afford yet, like highfalutin fancy electronics, we're just resorting to other props. You know, I resorted to a prop earlier, and we're resorting to other props now. But we're doing it for a reason. It's the Christmas season, and one of the I think this is probably one of the most sung hymns out of the Mike the Baptist hymnal. I say that because the ink on the right side of the page is like worn down where you can't even really read the words really good, and you'll realize as we're singing this hymn that we might have trouble singing some of these words, and it's because the page is so worn from being used out of the Mike the Baptist hymnal over the years.
Tears have been shed.
Tears. I mean, some of the ink is dripping. We're going to do the best we can, but you'll get the message just the way we did, and why we sing it so much. And why it has been sung so much, because it's so meaningful. We're going to sing you this hymn, and then we're going to retire from the program until the next program. That's just how it works. I hope. Seems that would be the right way for it to work. But thanks for joining us. No apologies for it taking as long as it has, because as we discussed earlier, it takes us a while to flower, and we're just going to flower as it happens. Okay, so we're going to move on to the hymn now, and we'll take care of this. And Merry Christmas to you. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Prospero año y felicidad. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas from the bottom of my heart. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Prospero año y felicidad. Hey.
Straw.
Yeah, we're just Christians.
Trying not to cuss.
That's it, I guess. Peace.
Mike the Baptist.